Good morning, everyone. Today is April the 6th. This is StockCast, your pre-market show. My name is James Mason. With me is Todd Derby. Todd, how are you doing this morning?
I am doing well, much better than yesterday. I'm here in downtown Chicago. You can see my backdrop, a little bit of a skyline from my hotel suite. So I can give some travel hacks how you can get a nice suite like this for next to nothing.
Very nice. That does not look like the south side of Chicago.
It is not the south side. We are in the theater district on State Street.
Yeah, I was in the south side of Chicago one time, but I'll have to tell you that story when we're not live.
Okay, I'd like to hear that.
Pretty interesting. And I wasn't doing anything illegal, everyone. Just got caught there. All right.
Oh, Lord.
Nah, sounds suspicious. All right, everyone. So Dow futures are currently negative 32 points. S&P 500 negative 7.5 points. So we're actually looking like it's going to be choppy coming out the gates. So keep that in mind, everyone. Now, let's see. Let's talk about ticker SINT. Let me share my chart for everyone. All right, so SINT, I am bullish on it overall. And let's see, let me get rid of this down here so make this a little easier to see. All right, SINT, I am bullish overall on it, but this thing is flirting with my stop loss right now. Excuse me, my stop loss is 180 and literally went down and touched the 180 range. I do have a few shares in it, but it didn't sell off. So I'm just assuming that orders didn't go through and trigger it, or at least my order didn't get caught in it. But it briefly went down, touched 180 yesterday, and pulled back up just a few cents and kind of holding this range. I do expect it to probably stop out today. If it does, then I'll just make another entry again once it starts pulling back up. As we can see on the daily chart right here, we do have this consolidation, but it absolutely needs to stay above 180. If we start breaking below 180, we do risk this thing selling off and potentially attempting to push down here into this 130 range overall, in my opinion. So if this thing does break 180, and if I get stopped out, I'm just going to wait for it to pull back up again and then make another entry. I mean, I'll eat that smaller loss because, in my opinion, the potential upside is far greater if I wait for confirmation in this thing to pull back up. So from a technical aspect, at this moment, I still feel positive about it, but we are flirting right there with that stop loss. So that is what I'm looking for in ticker SINT. And overall target price on this is 480. But once this thing starts getting above 350 at some point, between 350 and 480, that will start to be my selling zone. So whenever you guys get in profits, don't feel bad if you start taking profits or start taking half the profits. Especially when you get into a trade and you're already up 100%. I mean, think about it, guys. If you're up 100% in the trade, if you take half of your profits, you paid for your entire trade, and everything else, the other half, you're free riding. So all of those other shares are free. So I don't know if you guys ever thought about that. I mean, what I just said is not like groundbreaking at all, but that's just kind of how you have to think about these things. You know, how can you benefit the most from the system? And that is one way. These small cap breakouts, it's not too hard to get up 100%. So once you get to 100%, it's okay if you take half your profits in, because everything else from then on, that's all free money. Like, even if it drops 50% on you, that's still all profit. So you done made your money back. So that's how you have to think about how to trade in the stock market. So this is ticker SINT.
You talk about a new term we call it the selling zone. I think I like that because I'm getting that with some of my bio swing picks. People are I'm on vacation and people are reaching out to me asking me, "Hey, what's going on? What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I think everyone has to create a selling zone for themselves.
Yeah.
And if you're trading with a $500 account or a $100,000 account, your selling zone might be different for each person. And you don't understand how I prioritize this ticker or what's going on in my life financially or what taxes I may have to pay, et cetera, et cetera. So you got to find a selling zone that makes sense for you. So I think it's good. I like that term we call it the selling zone.
All right, so that is ticker SINT. One ticker that I want to show you guys, and this is not an alert. This is going to be something, another tool to help you guys out with. This ticker is XBI, X-Ray Bravo India. This is the Biotech ETF. And what this is essentially is kind of the equivalent to the SPY with, the SPY in context to the S&P 500. So how to use this? Use this the same way that you'd use the SPY. When you see it making a bullish uptrend and you're trading those bio stocks that have a lot of volume on it that day, there's probably a good chance that you can jump on that trend for a day trade and ride it out a little bit. Now, it won't be a 100% guarantee for every bio stock, the same way that the SPY being bullish won't be 100% for the S&P 500. You're still going to have your losers. You'll have your winners. So this is ticker XBI, and I just wanted to bring this up to y'all. You can just take a look at it and just compare it to any bio picks that you've ever traded with, and just kind of see how it correlated with itself. So hopefully this helps you guys out right here.
Another ticker, we got a couple in the chat box people are asking questions about. One is I'm going to talk about ITRM. It's one of my bio picks, and ITRM is got two key dates coming up. One is I think June 2nd, and the other one is July 25th. June 2nd is an AdCom meeting. That's an advisory committee meeting with the FDA where the company will present where they're at for their PDUFA date. And the FDA will give them feedback. And most times it's positive feedback. Hey, dot this I, cross this T, get this ready. Sometimes it's negative. If it's negative, it hurts the price of the stock. But it just means that it's going to take a little bit longer to get them to come back for their PDUFA. They might cancel the upcoming PDUFA. They may schedule it for 2, 3, 4, 6 months later. But ITRM is trading just like FBIO and ATXI. They're just waiting for news. And when the news comes, it's going to shoot out of the gate and make a lot of people happy. So I get asked this question, hey, what's going on with it? Nothing until we get to the AdCom meeting and we get the positive news, then it'll start to roll. But right now I'm sitting in it. My average price is $1.70, and I'm not worried about where we're at. I'm down a couple $100 on it, but I'm not right now worried about it.
All right. And looking at the daily chart on ITRM right now, you can see back here, it does have we're turning this VWAP off. It does have this nice gap to fill. So a lot of times before the news is actually announced, you'll start to see this pushing up. And keep in mind, guys, nothing is ever guaranteed in the market. They could release phenomenal news and it spike up real quick and then tank all the way back down to where it started. So don't get emotionally invested into this. Any stock, never get emotionally invested. Have your plan in place. When it moves up to a certain range, and that range is your target, your profit zone, start taking it. Don't sit there and necessarily wait for it to hit like a overall target price, or wait to see what the news is exactly going to tell you. It goes back to the old saying, buy the rumor, sell the news. And Todd, real quick, do you have anything else to say about ITRM?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so the whole buy the rumor, sell the news, because BPTH is a great example of that yesterday. I got smoked in it. Now, I had a ton of shares in this, and I was in this thing multiple times. So both times I had a position, or I got up to a position of about 9,000 shares. I took an overall loss. And again, this is going to sound bad, but percentage-wise of what I lost, it's really not. I lost about a total of $7,500. Now you got to think, I didn't have like 10 grand in this thing. I had more like 200,000. So 7,500 out of that, that's a very small percentage. But nonetheless, it still sucks. 7,500. Now, BPTH, they released legitimate news yesterday. Legitimate catalyst. And I made my first entry, 1,000 shares, literally at the freaking top. And then it dropped on me, which I did know that it was, it was pretty oversold. I mean, pretty overbought up here. And that's why I only entered it with 1,000 shares, because I knew if it did pull back, I could scale in and just kind of work it that way. And I was pretty much just scaling in 100 shares at a time. And I had a solid average all day long. And then basically when it started breaking down right here, that's when it got crappy for me. So it started breaking me down. I started stopping out, taking $3,000 losses, $1,000 losses, things like that. And because I kept chasing it, that's what caused me to get up about 7,500 in losses for this ticker. So this goes back to the whole buy the rumor, sell the news. For the swing trade side of this is an alert that our members had received for a swing trade, and a lot of us were already in this. This literally erased all of my swing trading profits. So all that time I was sitting in this swing trade, took those profits, and I tried to turn it into a day trade just to make more. And I erased everything. About a month's worth of waiting, all gone. So that's why I wanted to bring up the whole buy the rumor, sell the news. This was a prime example of selling the news, unfortunately.
It's a good lesson for everyone to learn from.
Yeah. It sucks, but yeah. Here's a ticker I was wanting to talk about. Let me see if someone brought it up in the comments really quick. APTX.
That's the ticker you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Very nice.
All right. So last update, short interest. 2 million shares being shorted. 4.8% of the float. Days to cover 3.2. Outstanding shares 66.9 million. The float 41 million shares. The news. They released news this morning about a phase 2 study. I haven't looked into this one yet. I'm just kind of going on the fly here. So they just released news this morning, and you can see that pretty significant pop right there. This is just one of those unfortunate events where algorithms receive that news, it pops so quick, and to really have been profitable going long in this, it'd have been next to near impossible unless if you were already sitting in this thing and then took profits immediately. This is just one of those trades that, man, like you just really couldn't do nothing with it. It moves so quickly, and then it immediately pulled back to where it started. Now, I haven't had a chance to dig into that phase 2 study, but overall, we are talking about a phase 2 study. So they do have some substance to what they're doing, and it will be worth taking some time to research this company and have eyes on it. Now, if we look at this daily chart, we can see back here, and I have traded this one in the past. It's been a while, but I haven't kept up with it. So I do need to go back and do my research here. But we can see this significant gap all the way, if you want to go to the top of the gap, all the way up to about mid $17 range. But right here at the bottom, right about $14.85. So what I would like to see on this daily chart is for this 9 EMA to start curling back up, and a 9 EMA probably get back above 371 in that range before I make an entry. And again, when I say 371, I mean the 9 EMA. Like, I don't care about the candlesticks. I want to see the actual physical line on the daily chart cross back above that 200 EMA line. Now, once it does that, I feel okay with it, with making an entry, because there's a lot of upside here. There's a lot of potential. And as we can see, I do have some trend lines already drawn out. So that first target range would be about 630 overall. Well, not overall, I'm sorry, 630. And then if we can break above that, we do have this next target about 770. And then over time, or unless they just have like a phenomenal catalyst in the future, potentially could get back up here into this mid-teen range. Now, again, this thing is either going to have to just stair step it all the way up, and it's going to take some time, or B, they're just going to have to release some phenomenal catalyst here, and this thing is going to spike. Now, when these things spike, be ready to take profit. Keep moving that stop loss up, because when they start spiking and they're gapping up, 100%, 200, 300, the higher it gaps up, the harder it's going to pull back.
More likely it'll get shorted.
Yes. As someone, like Todd and I, we enjoy shorting these. Now, with that being said, we enjoy playing them long. So far this year, I've actually played 90% of my trades long. And I've been Todd, I've been very, very light on my shorting this year, especially with these bio companies. And I've just been playing it out, doing my research, and just taking like these multi-week, multi-month swing trades and just been crushing it. But when they gap up that much, that's what catches our eyes as someone who wants to come in and short this thing. And if it's catching our eyes, it's catching thousands of other people's eyes. And everybody's coming in to lay into that bad boy. So when they gap up like that, be ready to take profits. If you have an astronomical target price, or if you got caught up in the FOMO from people online saying, this thing is going to go to $100 or whatever it may be, and you're holding on, if you don't move that stop loss up, you're going to miss out on everything. I guarantee it. So that's all I had to say about this one.
So I'm going to segue into FBIO, piggyback in on what you're saying here, because that's one of our swing picks. We all know it has a PDUFA date, which is the FDA approval date, coming up in 6 days, April 12th. And people are asking me, are we taking profits yet? Are we taking profits yet? We are not a team. We are not making a decision. You need to make a decision based on what's working for your budget. I already mentioned that. But I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. Right now, if it keeps climbing up nice and slow, and like today, if it adds 10, 15, 20, 30 cents, I'm really happy about that. What I'm waiting for is when it takes a spike. And when it takes a spike up, I'm going to sell my shares, because I don't want to get caught into a shorting situation and lose that opportunity. Or I'll sell half or 3/4, and maybe I'll ride and see if there's enough people who get in there caught in a short, and it gets squeezed from the short sellers, which sometimes happens. But right now, as it slowly grinds up, no one's worried about it. No one's radar is going off, and it's doing its thing organically, and I like that. So right now I'm sitting on several thousand shares of FBIO, just letting it do its thing, and over the next few days, it's going to be fun to watch. You want to talk about, give a float update or anything like James on FBIO?
What's that? The float?
You want to give any technical analysis on it?
Hold on a second. Let me see. Update everyone on short interest. So last update, short interest, 1.45 million shares being shorted, 2.5% of the float, 1.5 days to cover. So nothing big there on the short side. Right. Shares outstanding, 94.8 million. Float, 58 million. So that's a decent float, especially with a pending catalyst like this. Technical aspect of it, we're still holding pretty strong here on the daily chart. You can see zooming in. We had that nice gap up yesterday, and we're up just a few cents today. Now, what I would keep my focus on is when it starts to break these highs at these peaks. Once we start to break these highs, especially around this 560 range, which I do understand that's literally over a point away, but still, at some point, that's where we'd like to get here. But once we start to break these highs, this thing is going to start accelerating, or in theory, it should start accelerating and pushing up hard. Now, to close this gap, that gap to close is going to be around 660. In my opinion, if this thing is hitting 660 before that PDUFA date, I personally would just go ahead and take my profits. Because once things start closing their gaps, filling their gaps, they're going to start catching that resistance. And you don't want to start catching resistance and then they release their news and you're still just trying to wait for that strong pop when it has actually already pushed up on the run. And then you lose all of that profit and you start back at zero, kind of like how BPTH, in a sense, done to me. So that's what I would look for from a technical standpoint if it does fill this gap overall. So that is what I see on FBIO.
All right, you want to do one more?
Yeah, what we got?
Ticker KLDO, Kangaroo Delta Oscar.
All right. KLDO. Last update, short interest, 2.5 million shares, 12% in the float. Days of cover, 9.1. Shares outstanding, 42.5 million. Float, 20.7 million. So with that short interest setup and the share structure, I do like that, that whole picture it's painting so far. Now, see what we have for catalyst. I'm just going to skim up the top. Okay, so just looking at the top of the catalyst or news, does look like they're kind of getting into the beginning stages of some clinical trials, if I'm not mistaken. So really, though, with what I'm seeing off the top, this thing is just kind of, I think it's a little too early, in my opinion. Now, I do have to dig deeper here. I mean, we can tell that this thing hasn't really been on the market for too long. We go back here to the beginning of 2019, and that's when we start to see these daily candlesticks. So this company, in my opinion, hasn't really established itself, and they're going to take some time to get into these clinical trials, get them going, and actually start releasing some results. So overall, I just feel this is a little too early for this company to start releasing solid catalysts. And with this technical setup, with that 9 EMA now crossing below that 200 EMA, this thing is probably going to sell off and potentially could go down here and test these higher 2 ranges. Again, we don't necessarily know, or at least I don't know where they're at with any clinical studies at all. So I'm sorry, that's just kind of like a vague, opinion, but it's just what I have to go with. So that's just what I see for ticker KLDO.
All right, nice.
All right, everyone. So that is all we have for today. And actually, no. I lied. Hold on.
Oh,
I do want to talk about let's see, J. Cole. Hold on. Let me read his comment real quick. Okay, so J. Cole saying James was buying 40,000 worth of shares and the price wasn't budging. I'm assuming you're talking, GTT. That's what I want to talk about today. So I wasn't buying $40,000 worth of shares. I was buying 40,000 shares, which actually makes this scenario worse. So if you guys remember the other day, I was in this trade, GTT, and I'll pull it up on the chart real quick. I researched this company for about 2 weeks. Everything looked good for me. I was gung-ho about this thing. I was so positive that this is going to be the next black swan. And who knows, it still might be. But I am not bullish on this ticker anymore. And I'm going to explain why. I'm not in this trade anymore whatsoever. I left it the other day, pretty much breaking even. So I was in this trade at 40,000 shares, and there was a day that it was pushing up, and then it started kind of getting weak, and I told everybody that, hey, if this pulls back to this price, I'm going to cut 3/4 of my position. So I sold 30,000 shares. Well, that got me really concerned because Todd was there with me when I took my first initial 10,000 share order. And it was kind of weird that the entire 10,000 shares filled immediately. It was like, okay, whatever. But when I sold that 30,000 shares, that 30,000 share block filled. And that started concerning me. Like, how does a 30,000 share block fill when there's not even 30,000 shares on the level 2? And their last reported share structure was 58.8 million shares outstanding, with the float being 25.1 million. 30,000 shares should move it. 10,000 shares should move it when there's not anything on the level 2. So I thought about this thing for about a day, and Todd and I was actually talking about it at Premarket all one morning. And as that day went on, I was getting very concerned about it. And I was like, you know what? I just want to see what happens. So I sold my entire 40,000 shares because I did buy back in, get back up to 40,000 shares. And when I bought that 30,000 share position again, the entire order filled. So, I was getting very concerned. I started, I just sold off 40,000 shares. Nothing happened. There was not even 40,000 shares on the level 2. The entire order filled. And it immediately, I don't trade OTC. I haven't traded OTC in years because I hate it. But it's things like this, what I'm about ready to tell y'all. You can sell what you think is a large position size in OTC, and it does nothing to level 2, just because there's so many shares on the market. But what was weird about this, at least with OTC, you can see pretty much those shares on the level 2. This didn't have it. At no point did it ever have 40,000 shares on level 2. So I sold it. And then I bought 40,000 shares again. I just wanted to see if I can make the level 2 get ate up. Nothing was even changing at all. And so I made the video on it, recorded me actually selling 40,000 shares and then buying it again and then selling it again. And that's what erased all my profits in the end, which, whatever, no big deal. But I had to tell everybody, and that's why I did tell everybody. So what one of our members done, they reached out to their investors relations department and they got back a response immediately, which was cool. But it was just he asked some questions, and they just gave him just the generic response of, look at our filings that are old. We haven't filed in the last year. And if you actually dig in and do some research, and I wasn't concerned about this during that time when I was bullish on this, but they were telling them to resort back to the SEC filings that they haven't, filed in the last year. And then at the same time, if you read some of their reports, they have to go back to 2016 to redo all of their filings to make them accurate. Which that conflicts with the whole go back and look at the SEC filings for your proof, for your information that you're looking for. So I specifically reached out to them and asked them, can you confirm that your outstanding share structure is 58.8 million shares? Well, they took a little bit longer to respond back to me, and they finally did yesterday morning. And what did they tell me? Look at our SEC filings, blah, 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 all this crap. And nothing has changed. If we added more shares, we would have to have filed and all this other crap. Yeah, I get that. But at the same time, this is the CFA telling me this. The CFA's job is to understand what the company's finances are and their share structure. That's the point of having them. So how in the world can a CFA not answer a question like, hey, currently our share structure is 58.8 million shares, instead of, hey, go back and look at the SEC filings? Like, that's your job as a CFA, to know that information. Now, if they had updated it, like, let's say if they were accurate and updated with their filings, and maybe they sold some shares over the last 3 days, I completely understand that. And, by not, saying the current share structure, but they should know that previous reported share structure, not telling me to go back and look at something that is a year old, and then on top of it, knowing that there are inaccuracies in all their filings dating back to 2016. That just makes this start to feel like an OTC company. Like, it's a multi-billion-dollar company, but they're operating like a penny stock company, which is super weird. An OTC penny stock company.
It's like they answered the question so they could dot or check the legal ease box that they answered it legally.
Yeah.
But they weren't telling us the truth.
No, they instead of just giving the freaking answer that they should know, and it should not be an issue at all, they were just giving the attorney answer. Yep. And that was, look back at our SEC filings that are old. And we already know that they're not accurate per their statements. So Johnny reached out to their transfer agent. Now, I don't know if a lot of y'all know this or not, but in the OTC world, a big thing is, people contact the transfer agents to get the updated transfer share structure, and you just get all this nice information and, be able to use it. Well, Johnny did that. They wouldn't even answer Johnny. They told him to reach out directly to the company to ask them about their share structure. So it just puts you in a situation where the transfer agent won't tell you, which is weird, and telling you to ask the company. So you ask the company, and they won't tell you. They're saying, go look back at our old statements, our old filings that are not even accurate. And that's why I'm out of that trade. Something fishy is going on. Now, I'm not saying it can't shoot up here, but I don't like to gamble. I don't like to feel like I'm trading OTC again. I like to trade stuff that I feel confident about. And that broke my confidence in ticker GTT. And sorry for, that long story, but there's a lot of detail in it, and I just had to explain it.
No, that's a good story. When you're starting getting run around answers, you can't ignore that sentiment from the company.
Yeah.
So
it is what it is. So anyways, guys, we appreciate y'all tuning in today. We went a little longer than normal, but again, thank y'all, and remember, trade safe. We're probably going to open up choppy, but overall the market is going to be bearish today, at least by the setup. So trade safe, keep small positions, and we'll see you in the next one.
See you tomorrow.